January 5th, 2026, 7:23 a.m. Eastern Afghanistan. 18 US Army Green Berets move through a mountain pass with 40 Afghan partner forces. The terrain is brutal. Narrow valley, steep ridges on both sides. Perfect ambush site. Every soldier knows it. Every commander has briefed it. Every veteran has nightmares about it. But intelligence said the pass was clear. Intelligence said Taliban forces were 20 miles north. Intelligence said this route was safe. Intelligence was wrong. Or worse, intelligence was deliberately fed false information because 120 Taliban fighters are positioned on the ridges with machine guns, with RPGs, with coordinated fire plans, waiting, watching, preparing to trigger the deadliest ambush in Afghanistan in 3 years. And what happens in the next 90 minutes will determine whether 18 Green Berets survive, whether they hold position or retreat, whether they trust their training or their instincts, and why they chose to fight when retreating seemed like survival. The numbers are impossible. 18 Americans and 40 Afghans against 120 Taliban. Defenders in valley floor against attackers on high ground. Limited ammunition against unlimited firing positions. Help 15 minutes away against enemy already in position. Every tactical principle says retreat. Every survival instinct says run. Every calculation says this is unwinnable. But Green Berets don't calculate odds. They calculate mission. And the mission requires holding this pass. Requires not giving ground. Requires fighting even when fighting seems impossible. Because what's in this valley matters more than what's on the ridges. And what the Green Berets don't know yet is why Taliban committed 120 fighters to this ambush. Why this pass? Why this moment? Why this much force against this small unit? The answer is 400 yards ahead, hidden in a cave complex, guarded by what Taliban thought was overwhelming force, protected by what they believed was perfect ambush, a weapons cache worth $4 million, enough arms to equip a battalion, enough explosives to attack a city, enough ammunition to sustain insurgency for months. The Taliban knew it was there, knew Americans were coming for it, set the ambush to prevent the mission, to stop the seizure, to protect the cache. They committed 120 fighters because losing the cache meant losing the capability to operate, meant losing the weapons, meant losing the war in this region. But the Americans don't know this yet. Don't know why Taliban are so desperate. Don't know why the ambush is so coordinated. Don't know that holding this position means more than survival, means mission success, means strategic victory. They just know they're pinned down, taking fire from 3 sides, low on ammunition, with help 15 minutes away, and making choices that will determine whether they live or die. Stay with me, because what happens in those 15 minutes between first shot and first Apache reveals everything about Special Forces combat, about the decisions that separate living from dying, about why 18 men chose to fight when running meant surviving. At 7:23 a.m., the first RPG exploded. Not in front of the column, behind it, cutting off retreat, trapping the unit in the kill zone. Classic ambush tactic: close the back door, force them forward into more fire. The Green Berets hit the ground, seeking cover, identifying threats, returning fire. Their Afghan partners scattered, some diving behind rocks, some trying to run, some freezing. The Americans maintained discipline, team leaders shouting orders, directing fire, organizing defense, creating structure from chaos. Captain Michael Torres commanded the Green Beret team, 32 years old, 4th Afghanistan deployment. He'd been in ambushes before, knew the drill, knew that first 3 minutes determined everything. Either you organized or died, either you fought back or got overrun, either you established defensive position or retreated in chaos. He chose fight. All teams, defensive positions. Suppress enemy fire. Call for air support. We're holding this ground. His team sergeant, Master Sergeant David Kim, was already on the radio. Bagram Tok, this is Cobra 6. We are in contact. Heavy fire from elevated positions. Approximately 100 hostiles. Request immediate air support. Grid coordinates follow. The Tactical Operations Center responded immediately. Cobra 6, roger. Apache flight inbound. ETA 15 minutes. Hold position. Help is coming. 15 minutes. Torres did the math. At current rate of fire, they'd expend most ammunition in 10 minutes. Taliban had superior position, superior numbers, unlimited ammunition resupply from positions above. Americans were exposed, vulnerable, outnumbered. The textbook answer was tactical withdrawal. Fight your way out. Live to fight another day. But Torres knew something his Tactical Operations Center didn't. If they withdrew, Taliban would claim the pass, would control the route, would prevent access to whatever intelligence had targeted in this valley. The mission would fail. They'd come back later, with more forces, more casualties, more risk, or abandon the objective entirely. Let Taliban win. Torres refused that outcome. All teams, we're staying. Hold your positions. Conserve ammunition. Aimed fire only. We have 15 minutes until air support. We will hold for 15 minutes. Some Afghan partners heard this and panicked, started moving toward the rear, trying to escape. Torres couldn't blame them. They weren't special forces, weren't trained for this, weren't committed to this mission beyond survival. But their retreat could cause American casualties, could break the defensive line, could trigger collapse. Kim spoke to them in Dari. Calm, firm, stay, fight, help comes, we win together. Some stopped, returned to positions. Others kept going, disappeared into terrain. 10 Afghan fighters fled, 30 stayed. Those 30 would prove critical, would provide additional firepower, would hold sectors Americans couldn't cover, would fight alongside Green Berets with courage that earned American respect. But the 10 who fled would be remembered differently, would face judgment from their own people, would be marked as men who ran when foreigners stayed and fought. At 7:28 a.m., 5 minutes into ambush, ammunition was already concerning. Each Green Beret carried 210 rounds, 7 magazines, 30 rounds per magazine. At current rate of fire, they were burning through 1 magazine every 2 minutes. 12 minutes of ammunition. With 15 minutes until air support, the math didn't work. They had to slow down, had to fire less, had to make every round count, had to transition from suppressive fire to precision fire, from volume to accuracy, from keeping Taliban heads down to actually hitting them. Torres made the call. Shift to precision fire. Pick your targets. Confirm kills. Suppress only when they mass for assault. Otherwise, aimed shots only. We're stretching ammunition until Apaches arrive. His men adjusted, slowed their fire, took time to aim, made shots count. The tactical effect was noticeable. Taliban fire increased. Without American suppression, enemy fighters became bolder, exposed themselves more. fired more frequently, but also died more frequently. Because Green Berets with time to aim don't miss. Each shot found target. Each trigger pull meant one less Taliban fighter. The kill rate increased even as fire rate decreased. Quality over quantity. Training over panic. Discipline over desperation. At 7:33 a.m., 10 minutes into ambush, Taliban changed tactics. Stopped shooting. Started moving. Torres saw it through his scope. Fighters descending from high ground. Not retreating. Advancing. Preparing for assault. They'd suppressed the Americans. Now they'd overrun them. Classic ambush progression. Pin down. Wear down. Close in. Finish. The Americans had maybe 90 seconds before Taliban reached their positions. Before this became hand-to-hand. Before all their training and discipline meant nothing against overwhelming numbers in close combat. Torres made instant decision. All teams, prepare for assault defense. Grenades ready. Fix bayonets if you've got them. They're coming down the ridge. We stop them here or we die here. Nobody runs. Nobody retreats. We fight. His men acknowledged. Prepared. Some fixed bayonets to rifles. Others checked grenades. All mentally prepared for close combat. For the worst kind of fighting. For survival that depended on violence and luck in equal measure. At 7:34 a.m., 11 minutes into ambush, the Taliban assault began. 40 fighters rushing down the ridge, screaming, firing, throwing grenades. The Green Berets met them with disciplined fire, controlled bursts, grenades timed perfectly, explosions on the slope, bodies falling, others pressing forward, 20 yards, 10 yards. The Americans switched to full automatic, expending ammunition they couldn't spare. Because if Taliban reached positions, ammunition wouldn't matter. Only survival would matter. Only killing every fighter before they killed you. Kim threw his last grenade. Direct hit on a group of 3 fighters. All 3 down. He transitioned to pistol. His rifle was empty. No time to reload. Just draw sidearm and keep fighting. 2 more Taliban approaching his position. He engaged. 2 shots each. Both dropped. 4 rounds remaining in his pistol. He reloaded his rifle. 1 magazine left. 30 rounds between him and death. The Taliban assault broke. 20 fighters dead on the slope. The rest retreating back to high ground. The Americans had held, had stopped the assault, had survived the worst moment of the ambush, but at cost. 4 Green Berets wounded. Not critically, but wounded. Needing medical attention. Needing evacuation. Needing help that was still minutes away. And ammunition was nearly depleted. Most men down to 1 or 2 magazines. Some sharing ammunition. Redistributing what remained. Preparing for next assault. Because Taliban would try again. Would mass. Would coordinate. Would come with more fighters. And Americans might not stop them this time. Might be overrun by sheer numbers. Might die defending positions they'd sworn to hold. At 7:37 a.m., 14 minutes into ambush, Torres heard the most beautiful sound of his career. Apache helicopters. 2 of them. AH-64s. Gunships. Coming in low and fast. The pilots could see the tactical situation instantly. Americans pinned in valley. Taliban on ridges. Perfect targets. The lead pilot radioed. Cobra 6, Lightning 1. We have visual on your position. We see approximately 80 hostiles on the ridges, engaging with 30mm cannon. Keep your heads down. The Apache's M230 chain gun opened fire. Each aircraft carrying 1,200 rounds of 30mm high explosive incendiary ammunition. The effect on Taliban positions was devastating. The cannon rounds didn't just kill individual fighters. They destroyed entire firing positions. Each burst of 10 rounds covering a 50-foot area. Anyone in that area died. Instantly. Violently. The ridges erupted in explosions. In screaming. In chaos. Taliban fighters who'd been so confident 90 minutes ago were now dying wholesale, being shredded by American air power, experiencing what it meant to fight against modern military with air superiority. The psychological effect was as important as the physical damage. Taliban had ambushed Americans, had pinned them down, had prepared to overrun them, had been seconds from victory. Then helicopters arrived, changed everything, turned hunters into hunted, turned ambushers into victims, turned what seemed like Taliban victory into American salvation. The fighters who survived the cannon runs broke, abandoned positions, retreated, fled, some running north, some east, all desperate to escape the gunships that dominated the sky, that could see them, target them, kill them from distances where they couldn't fight back. At 8:53 a.m., 90 minutes after the initial contact, the fighting ended completely. Taliban had withdrawn, disappeared into the mountains, left 42 bodies on the ridges and slopes, left weapons and ammunition, left evidence of who they were and why they'd come. The Americans secured their position, treated wounded, collected weapons from dead Taliban, prepared for potential counterattack, but none came. Taliban were finished, had lost too many fighters, too many weapons, too much credibility. This pass was American now. This valley was American now. Whatever objective had brought Green Berets here was achievable now. Torres radioed situation report. Bagram Tok, Cobra 6. Contact complete. Enemy withdrawn. 42 EKIA confirmed. 4 US wounded, non-critical. 30 Afghan partners combat effective. Requesting medical evacuation and reinforcements. Will hold position and continue mission once secured. The response was immediate. Cobra 6, excellent work. Medevac inbound. Reinforcements in 3 hours. You are authorized to continue mission. Find what you went there for. The medical evacuation arrived within 40 minutes. 4 wounded Americans extracted, replaced by 4 fresh troops. The reinforcements brought ammunition, medical supplies, water, food, everything needed to continue, to complete the mission, to justify the ambush, to validate the decision to hold position instead of retreat. Because if they'd retreated, they'd have survived. But they wouldn't have accomplished anything, wouldn't have held the pass, wouldn't have broken the Taliban ambush, wouldn't have proven that 18 Green Berets could defeat 120 Taliban fighters through discipline and courage and air support, wouldn't have created conditions for mission success. At 2:00 p.m., the operation continued. Torres led his reinforced team forward, 400 yards into the valley, to the cave complex intelligence had identified, to the target that justified everything. What they found exceeded expectations. Weapons cache, but not just weapons. 100 AK-47 rifles, 50 PKM machine guns, RPG-7 launchers, thousands of rounds of ammunition, but also explosives, detonators, bomb-making materials, communications equipment, maps showing planned attacks, documents identifying leadership cells, intelligence bonanza worth far more than $4 million in material value. The cache seizure took 4 hours. Cataloging, photographing, removing sensitive materials, destroying what couldn't be moved. By 6:00 p.m., the valley was secured. The cache was neutralized. The mission was complete. Torres and his team extracted, returned to base, debriefed, reported, explained, and learned something that reframed the entire ambush. That changed their understanding of what happened. That revealed why Taliban committed so many fighters, why they were so desperate, why they fought so hard even against impossible odds. Here's what the debriefing revealed. Here's what intelligence analysis discovered from the captured documents. Here's why 120 Taliban fighters ambushed 18 Green Berets in that specific pass on that specific day, and why the Americans' decision to hold position prevented disaster far larger than one lost weapons cache. The Taliban knew the cache was compromised, knew Americans were coming, but the weapons weren't the primary concern. The documents were, the maps, the plans, the intelligence material that identified an imminent attack on Kabul, a coordinated assault involving multiple cells, suicide bombers, vehicle bombs, assault teams, planned for January 15th, 10 days away. The attack was designed to kill hundreds, to destabilize the government, to demonstrate Taliban could strike anywhere. The documents in that cave detailed everything, every target, every operative, every timeline, every resource. Taliban leadership knew if Americans captured those documents, the attack was finished. Every cell would be compromised, every operative identified, every plan exposed. 10 days of preparation wasted, months of planning ruined. The strategic setback would be catastrophic, so they committed 120 fighters, knowing most would die, knowing the ambush might fail, but hoping, betting, gambling that Americans would retreat under pressure, would value their lives over their mission, would calculate that 18 men couldn't hold against 120, would run, would give up, would let Taliban maintain control of the valley and the cache and the plans within it. Taliban bet wrong. Americans held, called air support, fought for 15 minutes on their own, survived the assault, won when the Apaches arrived, seized the cache, captured the documents, exposed the Kabul attack plan. Within 24 hours, Afghan and American forces raided the cells, arrested the operatives, seized the materials, dismantled the entire operation. The January 15th attack never happened. Hundreds of people in Kabul went about their lives on that day never knowing they would have died, never knowing that a firefight in a mountain pass 90 miles away had saved their lives, never knowing that 18 Green Berets holding position for 90 minutes had prevented the massacre planned for them. That's what Torres learned in the debriefing, that his decision to hold wasn't just about courage or duty or following orders. It was about preventing catastrophe. That his refusal to retreat didn't just accomplish the mission. That 90 minutes of fighting weren't just about surviving an ambush. They were about intelligence war, about preventing an attack, about stopping Taliban operation that would have killed more people than had died in any single attack in Afghanistan in years. Captain Torres received Bronze Star with Valor. Master Sergeant Kim received Silver Star. There, team members received Army Commendation Medals with Valor devices. The 30 Afghan partners who stayed and fought received recognition from their government, medals, commendations, promotions. The 10 who fled faced different consequences: shame, reassignment, discharge for some, because courage under fire matters. Because standing when others run defines character. Because the 30 who stayed proved that Afghan forces could fight alongside Americans as equals, could hold under fire, could win against superior numbers. The 10 who fled proved only that fear is universal, that running is option, that some choose it. But history remembers those who stayed, not those who fled. The 4 wounded Americans recovered, returned to duty, deployed again, fought again. The 42 Taliban who died were buried by their families, mourned by their communities, remembered as martyrs by some, as wasted lives by others. The ambush became legend among Taliban, warning story about fighting Americans in terrain where air support can reach, about ambushing about losing 120 fighters to kill 0 Americans and accomplish nothing, about how tactical perfection means nothing when strategic calculation is wrong. The mountain pass in eastern Afghanistan looks the same today. Still narrow, still dangerous, still perfect ambush site, but it belongs to American forces now, belongs to the memory of January 5th, 2026, belongs to the 18 who held, the 42 who died trying to overrun them, the 4 who were wounded defending, the hundreds who lived in Kabul because those 18 refused to retreat. The pass is marked now, informal name among soldiers who operate there. Torres Pass, not on any map, just in the memories of those who know the story, who understand what happened, who remember that sometimes holding ground matters more than staying safe. Sometimes mission success requires risking everything. Sometimes winning means almost losing. Sometimes 18 men defeat 120 through courage and training and air support, and the unwillingness to accept defeat even when defeat seems inevitable. That's Torres Pass. That's January the 5th, 2026. That's what Special Forces accomplish when everything goes wrong, but they do everything right. That's why the ambush failed despite perfect execution. Why the mission succeeded despite impossible odds. Why hundreds of people in Kabul are alive today without knowing why. Without knowing that 18 American soldiers